It worked the first year, the first couple of years, it was like $3 million we saved.
Wow. So when you say you saved,
We didn't spend.
did it, so like $3 million was, let's back to that original million, 10 people.
Yes.
So between them all, you saved, $3 million of rollover money.
Yes.
And
yes.
that goes now, where does that rollover go? Back to those departments
Yes.
specifically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that budget was set. They got that $3 million. Now, taxpayers might say, well, why didn't that come back to us if it was, appropriated by us? But ultimately, it went to something for us.
Well,
at
they're
some point.
still saving it, right? Because remember, the unfortunate thing in life is expenses always go up, but revenues don't follow expenses all the time. So this is how you save the money. And if things get more expensive, you'll be able to afford them without raising taxes. So the goal is, how do we continue things forward without raising taxes? Because nobody wants to pay more taxes, right? I mean, I don't want to pay more taxes. You don't want to pay more taxes. So you have to have a plan of how can we stretch that money out further so we don't have to go back to the taxpayer.
Gotcha. So there comes the rollover plan. And the idea
Yes,
is that
yes.
if, as you said, when it's year to year, if there's a deficiency in income tax, the money's there from the year before that didn't get
Yes.
used to help with that.
See,
and moving
because
forward.
right now we're lucky enough to save enough money overall through the city. We have about $92 million that saved up through all the various accounts, through everything in the city. And our budget annually is about 42 to 45 million. So if everybody quit paying money today, we could survive at least for 2 years,
Wow. Okay.
which
Now-
is great because most people can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would say there's other cities, we won't blast them, but I mean, you can see and feel it when you drive into them that
There's
like,
a
okay,
deficit.
they're running on credit cards around here and not able to fill potholes. Like, yeah.
But the other end of that too is you can't spend it all either, right? Because you say, oh, spend all the money and fix all these things now. Well, that would be bad too, because you'd spend it all and then something else may pop up and you can't
Right.
afford it.
You have an
So there's a
emergency.
process you have to go through to make sure that you are, being fiscally responsible with the money to make sure that it can last longer. The goal is not to spend it all and the goal is not to save it all. The goal is to allocate it properly throughout the years.
So one of the things that I think is given politics kind of a bad name nationally, locally, all in the above is that transparency, right? So you're
Yes.
talking to us, we've now saved, you said, over $90 million.
Mhm.
So we've got over $90 million in the bank.
mhm.
How do, as a local Medina, how do I know that that's being spent well? Is there somewhere where I'm able to go and see what we spend our dollars on?
We do have a website, and that's one of the things I would like to do as mayor, if we can jump into that.
Awesome.
Because AI is coming out, right? AI would be very helpful for this, right? Because it'll be able to take those numbers, be able to give you the information. Because right now, you have to gather that. You call the finance department, say, can you give me the numbers? And they can give you a number, but they can't really tell you how it's all being spent. And is it being spent wisely? You're never going to eliminate all spending. Yeah.
Everybody's never going to be happy on how you spend your
Yes,
dollars.
yes,
I
yes.
agree.
You're never going to be able to do that.
But I think when you have transparency, even if I'm not happy, at least I know what it's going to. Like,
Absolutely.
oh, you know what? Maybe I think we have enough funding for the police department, but they spent $5 million on X to upfit
Right.
them with better safety equipment or whatever, or maybe more officers for the schools or something like that. At least I can see that.
Yes.
I think that transparency going forward is just one of those things, because obviously talking about taxes in Medina, we just saw
Yes.
a huge property tax increase.
Yes.
In fact, I've got some questions here real quick. With the massive increase in local taxes, how does the administration work with city council to help, ease the financial burden of local population? And is that something that falls under your responsibility as mayor?
Let's talk about that a little bit, because you're going to remember, we're talking about real estate taxes.
Yeah.
The city receives about 5% of that. So the most of it goes to the schools and the county.
Okay.
So the city's not really living off of the property taxes that increased. Sure, we get a little bit of it. We mainly live off of the income tax.
Okay.
Because townships don't have income tax. So the city does. Townships do not. So we understand that's going to definitely affect the residents of the city of Medina. So like one of my things that I was talking about is, what is government here to do? What is government here to do for its residents? And one of the things that we could try to help relieve some of that burden on the residents is a sidewalk program I talked about. Because right now we make the resident pay for their own sidewalk repair. I don't think that's a good idea, because I view government as, if you're government, what are you supposed to do for the people, and what is used by all the people? That's what government's there for. Government's not, there for anything but to do those things collectively that it'd be difficult to do individually. Like you can't go run your own water line to Lake Erie to get your own water.
Right.
Well, you need a government to help you do that. You can't pave your own road in front of your house. You need a government there to help you do that. And I think sidewalks is the same thing. a sidewalk is nothing more than pedestrians walking on a sidewalk, just like cars drive on the streets.
Sure.
So I think that the government should be involved in that and help pay for that. I don't think it'll be that expensive overall to take over the maintenance and cost obligation to make sure those sidewalks are safe to and accessible for everybody. So that's one thing that we could take back to say, hey, resident, you don't have to come out of your pocket to pay for that. We'll plan for that. We'll be wise with the money on that, and we'll solve that problem for you. That way, I hate to say this, you could use that money to pay your taxes, your real estate taxes, because that's where it's going to go, right? So, you have to try to, how do you help them out solve that problem? and unfortunately, we can't have any control over the real estate taxes.
So that's a great point because, I mean, we had the conversation before. That's obviously a county-based thing, right?
Yes.
You mentioned only 5% of that really goes to the cities.
Yes.
Where does the majority of that go, and then who's responsible? Because, I mean, I'm sure you've seen in the news, Cloverleaf is trying to do something
Yes.
for the locals. As
Schools.
far as,
Schools take most of that. Usually the school makes up a majority of the property tax allocation because of the levies that they pass. So the schools take a bigger chunk of that. And I can't remember exactly how much of it is they take. It could be 70, 80% of it, goes to pay for education.
Sure.
Because that's the funding system that we have.
It's fun. It's interesting because I think my frustration with it was as I could see the future saying that your property taxes are going to go up, right? 3 years ago when